Welcome to the Audio Inc. Radio podcast, featuring interviews with the biggest names in rock and metal, hosted by Anne Erickson.
Get inked. Visit Facebook.com/Audio Inc. Radio, Twitter.com/Audio Inc. Radio, and AudioIncRadio.com for more ink. Whew, that's a lot of ink. It's AudioIncRadio.com.
All right, I'm very excited. We have another amazing show with another amazing guest. It's Anne Erickson, and you are on Audio Inc. Radio, the podcast. If you don't subscribe yet, shame on you. Do it right now. It's very easy, and it's free, and it's fun. Don't be in the doghouse with me. Just search Anne Erickson on Audio Inc. wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit subscribe, and you'll be instantly notified of the next show featuring the biggest names in rock and metal music. All right, I want to tell you a little story about one of the, I think it was maybe actually the first show that I ever saw at the Machine Shop in Flint. I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the first. I love that venue. I used to work at the Banana up in Flint, great radio station. Now I'm at the Riff, as you know. And I mean, going to the Machine Shop is a rite of passage in Michigan. You cannot be a music lover and have never stepped foot inside the Machine Shop in Flint. But I remember it was probably 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And I was just getting into radio and stuff like that. But I saw that StaticX and Dope were going to be at the Machine Shop. And I was like, I want to go. I love that industrial metal vibe and new metal. And I was like, they're so cool. I really want to go. But I had no one to go with, which is a lot like today for me. But in any case, I was like, I don't have anyone to go with, because even though I was in radio, most of my friends were not, and they just weren't into that kind of rock music at all. But I remember that one of my coworkers, who I'd gotten to know, Rebecca, she lived up in Flint, and she was just really in with everyone at the Machine Shop, and she was always at the shows and knew all the bands and stuff like that. So I went out on a limb, at least it felt like for me, and I emailed her and I said, hey, I really want to go to this show. Are you going to be there? And she was so nice. She was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going. I'll get you on the guest list. I'll come get you at your car so you don't have to walk alone. And she was so nice, and we became great friends ever since. But that show was dope. And StaticX, back when Wayne Static was alive at the Machine Shop in Flint. And it blew my mind. It blew me away. It was such a great show. And I just loved not only the music of it, the industrial feel of that music, but they had a really cool light show to go with it. And I felt like the coolest person in the world to be at that gig. I'll never forget that. But very cool, because I've got Edsel Dope on the show, who is incredible. I mean, he's been in this game for more than 2 decades, and he's very talented. He's also very smart on the business side of it, and it's always great to have him on the show. You can actually watch a video interview that I had with Edsel up at youtube.com/Audio Inc. Radio. That was late last year, and that was a great interview. And this time it is a podcast interview. It is an audio interview for your listening pleasure. A lot going on with Edsel right now. That dude is crazy busy. I mean, they've got Dope has a tour on the way with the Dope, StaticX, Fear Factory, Mushroom Head. I mean, wow, what a great bill. That's just that perfect new metal, late 90s, early 2000s bill. And that track is making its way across the country. A lot of dates are already sold out, including the Detroit date. So check out that roster. And of course, Dope also has a new record on the way, Blood Money Part 0, out February 24th, which is awesome. I've heard the whole thing, and it is killer. Love it. So that's on the way. And Edsel actually just produced StaticX's new record, their final record featuring Wayne, the late Wayne Static's final vocals, Project Regeneration Volume 2, which is out in November. Wow. What can I say? Wow. There is so much going on with Edsel. Very excited to have him on the show. And just a reminder that I would love to hear from you. Reach out to me on social media. You can find me at itsmeanne.com. That's ITSMEANNE.com. Itsmeanne.com to link up on social media. Twitter and Snapchat at Anne Erickson, Instagram and TikTok at Erickson and if you aren't part of my Patreon yet, you can check that out and you can have access to my private Patreon page and other goodies. You can find the link to my Patreon in the show description. And finally, check out my band Upon Wings at uponwings.com. All right, you ready? Let's get into it with Edsel Dope.
Hey, what's up? This is Edsel from the band Dope, and you are listening to Audio Inc. Radio with Anne Erickson. Turn it up.
So much to talk about, so it's awesome to have you back on the show and back hanging out.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the interest.
Yeah, so first of all, let's talk about the tour on the way, which major tour, the Rise of the Machine tour, and a lot of dates have already sold out, which is really cool, including the Detroit one, which is where I'm based. But this is such a great lineup. You know, tell me about how this came together.
It was just really natural, to be honest. We obviously it's the 20th anniversary of of StaticX's Machine album, which is also the 20th anniversary of Dope's Die Motherfucker Die. And, with my involvement in Static and how much I've been doing with them, we've sort of got this, understanding that until it doesn't make sense anymore, we plan to tour the two bands together because, we share so much, with the fans. And back in the early days, we toured so much together. So we just feel like it's a good package connection to those fans who probably discovered the two bands in the same night back in 1999, 2000 anyway. So those were kind of no-brainers. And then, Tony is obviously in Fear Factory as well, and we knew that, Fear Factory was going to make their comeback, and it just felt like the perfect band, especially with the Rise of the Machine and Fear Factory being such an industrial, iconic band. It just felt like the perfect band to round it out, and so we were super excited when, the scheduling for everybody lined up. And then as a special guest, just like we did on the Wisconsin Death Trip 20th anniversary tour, we reached out to our friends in Mushroom Head and also in the band Twisted and asked them if they wanted to jump on the tour for a couple weeks here and a couple weeks there just to round it out and give fans in certain markets a little bit extra bang for their buck. But yeah, you can go back to 1999, and the first time that Dope toured with StaticX was with StaticX and Fear Factory, and the first time that we met Fear Factory and toured with them was that same tour. So it just feels like it's all full circle, and we're all out here doing it again. And you know what nostalgia is for people that found this band or found these bands when they were in high school or in college, and now it's 20 plus years later, and they have jobs and families But, there's nothing greater than having that nostalgic night out with your friends to go and sort of relive that feeling that you had when you saw Fear Factory and StaticX and Dope back 20 years ago. It's up to us to give you that same energy and to give you that experience that kind of teleports you back. And that's the goal. And I think we're able to do it better than ever with technology, and StaticX brings a ridiculous amount of production and just a really great digital hi-fi, experience that the band wasn't able to bring back in the day because technology didn't allow. So it's really great to see it all come into fruition.
Yeah, it's so great that you guys were able to get kind of that same lineup back together from 99, which, can you believe it's been more than 20 years? That just blows my mind.
It is a little crazy. It feels like it's been a long time, but 20 years, man, it doesn't feel like it's been quite 20 years. It feels like it's been 12 or 15, but then then you could say, hey, what were you doing 10 years ago? And I would go, I was actually 10 years ago, I was moving to LA from Chicago, where I spent 10 years. So time flies. I guess it was 23 years since I was on tour with Fear Factory and StaticX in 1999. It's bananas. And then COVID didn't help anything either, because this tour was originally scheduled to happen with the actual 20th anniversary, which would have been in 2021, I believe. And it got pushed back because of all the shutdowns and all the insanity. But finally it's here, and there's no more delays. And we're all putting out new albums. Like Dope's got a new album coming out next week. StaticX just announced their new album today and dropped a new song, and that album comes out at the end of the year. And I know Fear Factory's planning some new releases as well. So there's a lot going on for all the bands on the tour. And then, of course, the tour is really the most important part, because whether you're interested in the band's new music or not, you want to come and live that nostalgic experience and hear all your favorite songs. So I'm very confident that all three bands are going to deliver a really great show and just give fans that teleportation experience.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the new music on the way. Your new record, Blood Money Part 0, is out the 24th. And you guys, it's cool. You've been releasing it, little by little, and even offering it for free download on your site. So kind of tell me, why did you decide to go this route?
I think it's just super unconventional, and I don't have to, follow anybody's format, because there's nobody in between me and the fans. There's no label. It's just us. So to be truthful, I really don't have much of a desire in the future to make full-length albums anymore. I feel like we're living in a more of a singles model where fans will appreciate getting more consistent content from me rather than waiting such long periods of time for me to complete full-length albums. But because Blood Money Part 1 came out giving everyone the expectation of a full-length album, I felt the pressure to deliver on that promise, which is why I did. But the way of getting the music to the fans, I just felt like I could do it my own way. I felt like, why wait until release day for the album? If you pre-order the album, we'll just start giving you singles every couple weeks until we get to the final point where the album comes out, and maybe there's one or two left. And as far as, giving the album away for free, it's just, I don't know, everybody goes to Spotify. It's just hard for me to even justify why I would charge somebody for the audio portion of records at this point in the game. It just seems like totally unnecessary. So, and then also, to be quite frank, for whatever this is worth, I'm not a conspiracy theorist in any way, shape, or form, but I would be a moron if I didn't acknowledge things like when you go to Dope's Facebook page, for instance, you're met with a warning that says, this site has a big warning, the word dope. This site might contain information about illegal substances or the trafficking of narcotics. It's like, so fucking stupid. So I would be an idiot to not think that in some way, shape, or form that affects my ability to directly reach my fans, because in between me and my fans is Facebook and some kind of firewall and algorithm. And then how am I not going to apply that same philosophy to YouTube when I put something out? It's much slower of a crawl than it should be for my fans to be aware that it's there. So I would say that a slight bit of my motivation in doing this and giving the album away for free was to give my fans a reason to go to my website and put their information into my system so that I can now directly communicate with them and share news and information with them directly with nobody in between. Because currently, I got Facebook or Instagram or YouTube in between us for my communications, but when it comes to my music and my albums, I have no one between us. So I would love to, as time goes on, remove those third-party entities from the entire equation and be able to communicate directly with my fans via the website, via messages directly from the band to the fans, the same way that we do the music, because it's just a pain in the ass to feel as if someone else is controlling the level as to how I'm able to reach my fans. Like, it is kind of crazy, right? You got 500,000 people following you on a social media platform, but when you post, like 10% of them see it. Like, what the fuck is that all about? Like, so stupid.
Yeah, no, it's like they're the gatekeepers.
And believe me, having the band name Dope does not help me in those regards.
Right.
They're not turning that spigot on high. I guarantee.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's something that 20 years ago, nobody thought about.
Right. So that's a little bit of my motivation too, was just to again not follow the normal conventional rules and to sort of bypass having, gatekeepers in between me and the fan base. There shouldn't be. So I call it, direct band to fan connect, relationship. Like there shouldn't be anybody between us. So that's my goal.
Yeah, and looking ahead, are you thinking that Dope, you guys might release some singles, like you said, but not a whole album again, just go the single route?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's very likely, the same format for StaticX, who's, now released the final album with Wayne's Works. So if they're to do anything going forward and release anything, I think it would be single-based. For Dope, I have probably another 50 or 60 songs on my computer that are like just a hair away from being done, like either a lyric that I haven't finished in a bridge or a guitar part that's missing. And for whatever reason, I'm one of those people that until I feel like it's done, I'm just not willing to settle for it being done. But and it's hard to put time frames on that. So just as I'm being creative and working on stuff, when I feel like, oh, this song is done, I'm happy with it, well, maybe I'll shoot a video for it and just put it out. Again, I'm giving it away for free, so it's not like it needs to be a promotional mechanism for anything else. It's just, here's some new music, guys. I hope you like it. So I would much rather be in that business model than in this, long-winded wind-up to this new full-length album. And there's enough cool shit we can do with past catalog for that. Like, our first album, Felons and Revolutionaries, has never come out on any kind of super cool deluxe vinyl. So like that's something I can see putting some time and effort into creating a really great physical product for. But I don't need to do that for another Dope record 3 years from now, in my opinion. I may change my mind, but I think it's very doubtful. I would be just fine if I never release another full-length album as long as I live.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. We've been talking about StaticX. Very cool that they just announced that last record featuring Wayne's vocals, Project Regeneration Volume 2. And you're executive producer, right?
I am.
Wow, that's great. So tell me, what was this experience like, working with Wayne's final vocals?
It is something that people really can't fathom because of the disarray that this content was in. Like, it was damaged work tapes that were left in a warehouse that had mildew and like literally for a song like Terrible Lie, it's a 4-minute song, and the only thing that retained its integrity was Wayne's vocals and a tiny, tiny bit of programming that truthfully didn't even get used because it was there more to just keep time. But even to extract the 4-minute vocal performance from Wayne, it's not so simple as just going export. It's like you put it in this tape machine, you wire it up to the computer to export it, you hit play on the machine, and like any damaged tape that cassette tape or whatever you'd have experience with in your life, you press play, and 10 seconds into it like clips or it stops, and you got to hit play again. And meanwhile, you're still recording, so you end up with 50 or 60 different little excrements of, is that the right word, excrement? That's not the right word, is it? That's wrong.
Hey, it works.
Yeah, so you end up with 50 or 60 little clips, and now you have to go in and find where all the scenes are, and you have to mesh that together to get that 4-minute vocal performance. Then you listen to it and you go, man, the integrity of this vocal performance isn't really that great. It's like super thin. And so then you go and you layer it with additional vocals that the normal ear doesn't really hear, but they're warm now because they have the depth to them that the original ones were lacking because of the damaged tape. And that's just the vocals. Now you have to go and put an entire musical bed underneath it. And it was obviously a bit easier with Terrible Lie because it's a cover song, but on all the original songs, you're trying to first identify what was Wayne doing, then trying to identify like what's the tempo and what's the key that he's singing in. And now let's get the band in a room. Once we finally got all that situated and we can hit play and play Wayne's vocals from beginning to end on what could be a song with a click track, and now let's start writing some riffs underneath it and then adding some programming. And, you know, if people had just an inkling of an understanding of what an undertaking it was to do this, I think their minds would be blown, because, you know, people are fucking crazy, and everyone is on a high horse and has an opinion. But, like, if I would have gone back 5 years from now and said, hey, StaticX is going to release 25 brand new songs and it's going to have Wayne Static on it, like, your expectations would have probably been super low. You'd have been like, I'm sure this is going to suck, and it's probably going to sound like a bunch of crappy demos recorded in his bedroom. And now all of a sudden the band works tirelessly for years, spends ridiculous amounts of money and time in a studio to make everything right. And now it's being judged like Wayne is here. And I'm okay with that, because I believe we did that good of a job to where it does sound legit. These are two real legitimate sounding albums. But Wayne wasn't here. I couldn't call him up and go, hey, dude, you know that vocal take you did in the second verse? I need you to come and re-sing that one part again because you're out of key, or because the timing was off, or whatever. No, we had to fucking fix that and make it sound good. Hey, Wayne, we don't have an idea in this bridge here, but we need something super evil disco. Can you come down and knock that out for us? Nah, dude, sorry, I'm too busy up in heaven. Like, can't come down and hang out with you guys. Like, we did not have the guy here. We just had a bunch of just pieces of ideas with no real understanding or idea of what he expected it to be. And there is no wise old man. There's no one to call. It's just us in a room trying to figure out how to make the best sense of it and give it the appropriate amount of love and attention and respect that it deserves. So it was really, really, really time consuming and really demanding and a lot of pressure. I'm super happy with how it came out. But I think that, you know, we did such a good job on Volume 1 and Volume 2 that I think we sort of made people forget what this actually was. Like, I think people could have gone into this with super low expectations and been blown away, which is really how they should be. But, you know, again, in the entitled world that we live in, I'm sure that, you know, people will listen to it and some people will love it. And then the haters that are going to hate will be like, yeah, this doesn't sound very good. Like, all right, well, cool. You know, if you could call Wayne and get him to show up in the studio to make it sound great, I would really appreciate that. But he's not here. So it's pretty remarkable that we've been able to bring the fans 2 full-length albums with his last bits of work that were completely just in shambles. Like, no, you know, nothing complete at all.
Right.
So I'm very happy with it. And I also, you know, again, know better than anyone on this earth how much time and effort it took to complete it.
Well, I think it's incredible, and I definitely think that the true fans appreciate it so much. I mean, how often do you get lost recordings from someone who's passed away that are this good? So, and also, you know, of course, StaticX out there on the road with their mystery lead singer, and I'm wondering, why is it important to you to keep that private and secret? Because you've been asked about it incessantly, you know, are you the singer, blah, blah, blah. But I know that it's important to you to keep that whole thing private.
It's really and truthfully, it's not so much about it being private as it is about respecting the brand of StaticX and retaining the respect when writing or discussing it. And a good example I can use for that is Ghost. Like, everybody knows that there's a dude named Tobias that's behind the paint. But when people write about Ghost, they don't call him Tobias. They respect the entity and they call him Papa whatever the fuck he is. And that's because they respect the creative, they respect the artistic integrity of it enough to honor that. And with StaticX, we knew very early on that we were not going to have the overwhelming support of the media and the community. And in the world that we live in, it's to try and tear things down. It's to try and be the one to uncover and let you know that there is no Santa Claus or whatever it is. So for me, it was more about making sure that StaticX was properly represented, because I would never be interested in looking at a photo of StaticX or reading a liner note that mentions me as being the singer of StaticX. Edsel Dope has no interest in being the singer of StaticX. There's one living, breathing singer of StaticX, and that's Wayne Static. And then there's a character, an entity, for lack of better words, that was created in order to allow StaticX to have a future and to continue and be the legacy act that they are and tour and perform. And we gave that character a name that is respective to StaticX and fits the branding of what StaticX is, and that's what the importance is. It's the importance of recognizing the character as opposed to recognizing the person behind the character.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand that if we didn't make that a absolute mission of ours, that people would have shit all over it, and they would have done everything they could to discredit it. And if it were Edsel Dope singing for StaticX, it would be, oh, it's Static Dope. Or if it were Burton from Fear Factory, it'd be, oh, Static Factory. It's like, go fuck yourself. Like, you can't give people the ability to control your narrative, or else they're going to control it in the worst fucking way possible, because for whatever reason, that's the culture that we currently exist in. If it was 25 years ago, we wouldn't have any of this mess, because we'd call the editor of fucking Rolling Stone magazine and go, hey, dude, we're going to let you in on what's happening. And they would go, oh, this is great. And they would get behind it. And they would properly help you tell your story to the world. But in the world that we currently live in, that's not the goal. The goal is, as I said, to be the naysayer and to be the one who lets you in on the fact that there is no Santa Claus and ruins the parade for everybody because they're just dicks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that unfortunately social media has given everyone a mouthpiece, and that's been a negative more than a positive. I hate to say it, but yeah.
100%. And it's not just the people on the message boards. It's the people that deliver the news too. And it's really sad, because we're, heavy metal, whatever you want to call it, like, we're absolutely the minority when it comes to the overarching pie of music listeners. Like, there's no doubt that heavy metal music is a much smaller demographic than pop music or rap music or any of those things. So you would think that the news outlets that are popular for being the news gathering outlets for this type of music, you would think that they would go more out of their way to paint artists in this genre in a more favorable light. But if you notice, half their goal is to rip everybody down. Half their goal is to create drama for clicks, or to put the worst picture that they can of Sebastian Bach up when they talk bad about him, or whatever it is that they just have these motives. Like, why would you do nothing but tear down the artist in the genre that's already struggling so hard to stay alive? Like, why wouldn't you paint those artists in a better light? Why wouldn't you be more supportive? When everything's a joke, everything's a dig. It doesn't mean that I have thin skin. I have thicker skin than fucking anybody. It just means that I don't understand the motive behind it, except for that you're just a money-grubbing scumbag who wants clicks. Meanwhile, you'll rip on everybody else's integrity, but what are you doing? You're not doing anything for the betterment of the cause. All you're doing is pitting people against each other and tearing the community down to a lower spot. It makes no sense to me. So unfortunately, we had to take this approach with StaticX and with the character of Zero to avoid people from spinning their own narratives and turning it into something that was different from what it actually was. And I think we've accomplished that. Again, I say the same thing. Like, Edsel Dope has absolutely no desire to be known as the singer of StaticX. That's not my gig. You want to talk to me about the creative process all day long. I'll talk about producing the records. I'll talk about being their friend. I'll talk about managing, the band and the strategy that goes into it and the infrastructure of starting their own label, because StaticX is a band that up until Project Regeneration, every album that they ever released was on a major label. It was either on Warner Brothers or Reprise. Whereas Dope became an independent band very early in my career, so I was able to go and build an independent infrastructure and understand how all that works. But my friends in StaticX had no fucking clue. They don't know how to run a record label. They don't know how to run their own business. So when I'm sitting in a room with them and going, guys, if we're going to do this, this is the most logical way to do it, to remove the gatekeepers from in between you and your fans. They had somebody to rely on that had that experience and had that infrastructure and wherewithal. So it's been super beneficial for all of us, and we're all, we were always friends, but now we're like the best of friends, and we owe each other a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful for the opportunity, because without those guys and the years of work they put into building StaticX, I wouldn't have a project to lend all those efforts to. And for them, without my efforts to help them survive and exist in the modern day, they would have this band that, is no longer around. For lack of better words, we literally brought StaticX back from the dead, and it took all of us to do it.
Yeah, and I think that Wayne would be proud. It's nice that you guys are, really doing this and kind of paying tribute to him.
No doubt about it. I mean, I think that, like anyone, in the beginning, you'd be a little questionable. What's this? I don't know about this. You guys are going to put this thing together without me and finish my work? Like, I don't know. But I think the proof is in the pudding. And I think that, again, with everything we said about how people love nothing more than to rip something apart, believe me, if StaticX was out there on tour and they were laying an egg every night, you would know about it. The word on the street would be that StaticX show without Wayne is a fucking joke. But that's not at all what the word on the street is. The word on the street is, well, I didn't know what to think about it, but fuck, I saw it and holy shit, it's really good. Like, it really delivers. Like, so that's pretty incredible too. Like, it's one thing to talk about the records and how we were able to make those translate, but it's a whole nother thing to, like, put a band out there on the road without the most important element to it, and pay no attention to the man in the middle wearing the mask, singing the words and playing the guitar. Pay no attention, but if that guy fucks up, it's going to sink the ship. It's kind of like, I forget what movie it was, but there's always been this saying that stuck with me, which is like, I feel like in many ways that role of Zero represents a janitor. It's like, if you do your job well, nobody notices. But if you fuck up, everything goes to shit.
That's a good analogy. No, for sure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Love the new record. And I just, cannot wait to see you guys live.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you at St. Andrews. I know that one's been sold out for a while. And unfortunately, there was no bigger room to move it to. So that one should be a hot, sweaty little mess.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, have a great night.
You do the same. Thanks so much.
The one and only Edsel Dope, thank you for being a great guest on my show. And of course, you're welcome back anytime. I like to keep it positive on here. Edsel, you have a safe home right here on Audio Inc. And check out their new record, Blood Money Part 0, out on the 24th, which is awesome. Just a great set. I love that industrial metal feel. And StaticX has the new record on the way, Project Regeneration Volume 2, and the tour. I mean, my mind is blown. There is so much going on right now with the Dope, Edsel Dope, and StaticX camp. But the tour, Dope, StaticX, Fear Factory, and Mushroom Head. I think that's a great, nostalgic, new metal, industrial metal bill. So check all of that out. It's Anne Erickson. And hey, if you don't subscribe to the podcast yet, shame on you. You're in the doghouse. Just search Anne Erickson on Audio Inc. wherever you rock out to podcast. Hit subscribe and you'll be instantly notified of the next show featuring the biggest names in rock and metal music. And be a part of my private Patreon. You'll get access to my private stuff on my Patreon page and other goodies. You can find the link in the show description. Also, I would love to hear from you. Don't be shy. Reach out to me on social media, Twitter and Snapchat at Anne Erickson, Instagram and TikTok at Erickson Anne. Head to itsmeanne.com. That's itsmeanne.com. Itsmeanne.com to link up on all of my social media and check out my blog and stuff like that. And finally, don't forget to check out my band Upon Wings at uponwings.com. As always, you are amazing. Thank you for rocking with me. Until next time, be safe, God bless, and we'll rock soon. It's Anne Erickson on Audio Inc. Radio.
It's Audio Inc. with Anne.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Audio Inc. Radio podcast. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. Get inked online at audioinkradio.com. I'm Anne Erickson for the Audio Inc. Radio podcast.